Hey guys, in today's trip through the nostalgic neighborhood, we're visiting a unique intersection between BMX and skateboarding. Did you know that a BMX freestyle legend indirectly sparked one of the biggest shifts in skateboarding history? Stay tuned to learn more about this incredible crossover story. Today's journey starts with this awesome StickORama deck. We'll kick off with an overview of the deck, we'll dive into the huge influence of World Industries and its renowned illustrator Marc McKee on 90s skateboarding culture, and we'll explore the current force behind the reissue of Pinewood LA. And along the way we'll uncover how a passion for BMX connected some unexpected dots that helped spark a revolutionary shift in the skateboarding world during the 90s. If you followed my channel, you'll know that I've been more interested in riding skateboards than collecting them. But after setting up this home office during the pandemic, I found myself on a mission to get a copy of every skateboard that I owned back in the day. And I've got a couple of my originals still, but the rest I've been getting as reissues. And I picked up a copy of this StickORama deck from Old School Skateboards this past fall. And it's really awesome, and what's even cooler is that it comes with the copies of the original sticker set too. You might have picked up on my lifelong fascination with stickers in my videos. I've been a sticker enthusiast since my childhood, with a special place in my heart for those old Colorform sets that we used to play with. So you can imagine as a teenager my excitement when World Industries released a skateboard that revived the Colorforms concept. This unique design allowed you to apply stickers to a scene right on the skateboard deck, and I was sold. So yeah, this was my first skateboard from the 90s, and I absolutely loved it. But interestingly, it turned out to be one of the last boards I got from that era. After the summer of 1990, while I continued skating off and on for a couple of more years, I gradually drifted away from closely following the skate scene. I'd ride with my friends occasionally, just for the fun of it, and I didn't really have much concern for the latest trends and changes like the shift to smaller wheels. As a result, I've never really paid much attention to 90s skateboarding and BMX culture. I've got more nostalgia for the 80s, but diving into research about this board was really eye-opening.
Damn, these things are fast!
I've discovered some incredibly fascinating aspects of the 90s scene that I had overlooked before. There's some truly intriguing history here. So yeah, this StickORama was first released by World Industries in 1990. It's 10 inches wide by 31 3/4 inches long. It's got a 5.5 inch nose, a double dip concave, and do-it-yourself graphics. Each board came with a set of 19 different stickers, offering a playful and edgy mix that included characters like pimps, whores, vagrants, and men in blue. A nod to the diverse and vibrant characters from Playland. The ad for this board humorously invited skaters to create lame graphics just like us, embracing a rebellious spirit that resonated with the skateboarding community of the time. This was part of the transition from 80s shape boards to the 90s boards that were more symmetrical, with noses sized more like the tails, and I guess kind of like a precursor to the modern popsicle shapes. It was my first board with a big nose, and I really loved skating it. Unfortunately, I broke it in half, landing a big ollie off a ledge in the middle of downtown Milwaukee, a couple of miles from our car, and it really sucked doing the walk of shame back to the car while my friends skated happily along. I was stoked to see another reissue run of this graphic. The design is hand screened on the deck and comes with copies of the original stickers, except for this is a little bit more grown up than the Colorforms from my childhood. It's set in a seedy part of town with the iconic Pooh as a pimp and all these other crazy stickers. Prime has recently made boards with the graphics featuring Winnie the Pimp and this peeing dog too, sort of like giving a nod to the lasting impact of this design. Do you remember this one, or did you have one too? And if so, did you do anything remarkable with the stickers? If not, let me know if you had a favorite skateboard back in the 90s. Graphics were by Marc McKee, and this reproduction deck is from Pinewood LA, and I'm glad to see that Marc's getting some proceeds from the sales of these reissues. I should probably be embarrassed to say this, but I wasn't familiar with either Marc or Pinewood LA until I purchased this reissue back in the fall. But I won't be too hard on myself because I was more of an 80s skater, and if you skated a lot in the 90s, I assume you're probably scratching your head and you're like, how can he not know this? So yeah, this is where the story gets interesting. The artist is Marc McKee. This board might be one of his earlier creations, but he quickly rose to prominence as one of skateboarding's most influential artists, and he even served as the editor of Big Brother magazine. Marc did the artwork for tons of skaters in the 90s for brands like World Industries, 101, Blind, Liberty, Almost, and so on. Some of his most famous graphics include Mike Vallely's Barnyard deck, Steve Rocco's Winnie the Pooh, the Not a Satan deck, and the Blind Jason Lee deck. The list really goes on and on. Working alongside Steve Rocco, McKee's art often challenged and expanded the boundaries of what was deemed acceptable in skate culture at the time. His work wasn't just visually striking, it was also thought-provoking and pushed the envelope, reflecting the bold and rebellious spirit of skateboarding in the 90s. There's a rich and fascinating history from each graphic, revealing the culture and the times that they emerged from. Marc did an interview on the 9 Club podcast a while back, where he shared a bunch of interesting stories behind graphics like the infamous 101 Not a Satan deck. It's definitely worth a watch. You should check it out. Okay, now for the crossover part. Before diving into Marc McKee's transition to skateboarding, let's spotlight the BMX freestyle legend who played a key role in this story, and that's R.L. Osborne. And for those who might not be familiar, R.L. Osborne was a giant in the BMX world. He was a pioneering BMX freestyle rider in the 1980s. He was known for his incredible aerial stunts and flatland freestyle tricks. And if you've seen the movie Rad, he was featured in the opening and closing scenes doing flatland tricks. His influence extended beyond the bike. He was an entrepreneur and an innovator in the BMX industry. His company Bully was among the first to embody street-style BMX in the late 80s and early 90s, where they ditched all the fancy uniforms, and this was a turning point in BMX culture. So yeah, Marc McKee skated as a kid, but he had become more interested in BMX freestyle and started making a name for himself in the 80s. He was even sponsored by Skyway, and he was going to school for art and was hired on by R.L. Osborne to do graphics for Bully. R.L. owned property and he was renting a room to Steve Rocco and Rodney Mullen in 1989 as they were just getting started with World Industries. The impact of World Industries on skateboarding could be a whole video all by itself. Their attacks on the industry status quos are legendary. But yeah, RL's connection to Rocco and Mullen is where our worlds collide.
When worlds collide, when...
Apparently, RL had mentioned to Rocco that he liked working with Marc because he was cheap. And I don't know if Rocco poached Marc from RL or what, but Marc was hired onto World Industries as their first designer. And then together, Rocco, Mullen, and McKee started a revolution that changed skateboarding forever. And so yeah, I love the BMX crossover here. I don't know if Marc stayed involved with freestyle through the years, but he certainly stayed with skateboarding and he's still active in the industry today. The other cool part of this story that I wasn't aware of is Prime Wood LA, who made this reissue. If you were more of an 80s skater like me, you may not have heard of them, but they were there behind the scenes operating as one of the first big skateboarding manufacturers ever. The company started out in 1930 in the furniture business, and by 1964 they were curving plywood for certain types of furniture, and the presses that they built for this process would eventually be used to produce some of the very first kicktail skateboards in the late 60s, and Prime was pressing wood for some of the earliest skateboarding brands like Madrid and Z Products. In 1988, they began working with Steve Rocco and Rodney Mullen to perfect the modern skateboard. And Prime began making skateboards for brands like World Industries, Blind, Plan B, 101, Shorties, and Birdhouse. At its height, Prime was producing 2.4 million skateboards a year. That's around 6,500 a day. The original owners retired in 2008, and Prime was sold to Scott Holloway. While the company operates at a smaller scale today, they're still producing tons of products, including 100% handcrafted boards, silk screened in LA. So yeah, I'm a little embarrassed to be so ignorant of Prime Wood LA. I guess they've just been too behind the scenes, but that seems to be changing in recent years. They still make boards for other brands, but they've been putting out their own models in these reissues for some time now, and the quality of this deck looks fantastic. And what's even cooler is they have blanks made for most shapes at much cheaper prices, and you can get a blank version of this StickORama deck for just over $50, and I think that might be my next board that I skate. And if you're into 90s boards, stay tuned, because one of the next projects to be released this spring is the Jason Lee Dr. Seuss reissue. And looking at their Instagram feed, it looks like the legendary Chuck Holtz has been leading the charge on this one, and it looks sick. How about you? Were you already a big fan of Marc McKee and Prime Wood LA, or were you more like me, aware of the end results but unaware of the man behind the curtain?
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
And if you were already a big fan, what was your favorite McKee graphic? So yeah, this trip down memory lane started out as just a little research on one of my old decks, and it turned into a rabbit hole of cool topics that I'm still having fun exploring. I find it super cool how R.L. Osborne's relationship with Steve Rocco and Rodney Mullen led to a partnership with McKee that brought Marc over from the BMX world to becoming one of the most influential behind-the-scenes guys in skateboarding through his graphics and work on the Big Brother magazine. It's so interesting. I hope you found this crossover story as fascinating as I did. Please share your stories and memories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more nostalgic journeys. Until next time, keep riding and skating, and keep those memories alive.